Welcome back to RFD-TV Live. It's the Vita Ferm Angus Hour here tonight. I'm Mark Oswald. Great to have you with us. We've talked 30 minutes, a great deal on our first half of the program about the importance of year-round nutrition and delivering healthy, quality, productive cattle to the marketplace. All right, so now for the remainder of our show, we're going to put all that together and talk about how you leverage those good practices into emerging opportunity that we see in the cattle business, age and source verification, how that puts more money into your pocket. Joining me now, three new panelists: Sarah Snyder, Director of the Angus Source and Gateway Programs from the American Angus Association; Bob Sand here, founder of Beef Connection, we'll learn more about that; and Ron Rowan, representing Beef Northwest, a cattle feeding operation based in Oregon. Ron, let's start with you down there. Great to have you here on RFD-TV. It's a long trip out here, but I'm glad you made it. And tell our viewers a little bit more about yourself and your background there.
I'm from Eastern Oregon. My background is in cattle feeding. I've worked for the three largest feedlot companies in the Pacific Northwest, Simplot, AgriBeef, and now Beef Northwest. I've been with Beef Northwest for 15 years. Beef Northwest has two feedlots in Oregon and one in Washington with a 95,000 head one-time capacity. We sell most of our cattle to Tyson. We're the largest supplier of age-verified cattle to Tyson in the Pacific Northwest.
So we talk about age and the verification program that we're going to discuss here. You have daily working knowledge of what you're talking about here, how important it is to the bottom line of cattle feeders.
Yes, that's one of my responsibilities, is to oversee the age verification at the company.
Good to have you here.
Thank you, Mark.
Good. Looking forward to talking with you. Bob Sand from Kentucky originally, founder of the Beef Connection. What is the Beef Connection? Tell us about that.
Well, the Beef Connection was a company I started to, well, as a hobby at first. It was a way to manage and market cattle. And what I brought with, my whole background is Kentucky agriculture, but moved away from that into manufacturing. Mm-hmm. Wanted to see if we could bring manufacturing principles into this cattle production business. Started out on my farm to develop a process and then reached out into the community, brought in more members, and have now branched across the state of Kentucky and Tennessee. But it's a way to market and manage cattle to an optimum point and to create high-performance producers that build high-performance cattle.
And to continually building that herd through the age and source verification, you have that trail with that
cattle. Age and
cattle.
source is a critical part of what we do.
Right, great. Good to have you here. Thanks for joining us. Looking forward. Sarah, Sarah Snyder, and how long have you been with the Angus Association?
Worked for American Angus for about 6 years now.
Right, okay. And tell us a little bit about your background. Is Missouri home for you originally?
Not originally, it is now, but I grew up on a diversified family farming operation in northern Michigan, followed in my father's footsteps and finished my education at Michigan State University, and now work at American Angus. My responsibilities there have been for the last 5 years to oversee the Angus Source Process Verified program. We've extended that to include Feed Yard Umbrella, the Gateway program we added last year. So on a daily basis, we work with ranchers, feedlots, all the way through the packer, and then I interact with USDA, who has oversight of our program. Right.
Well, we talked to viewers and said age and source verification. We're going to tell them what that means, and I've learned a lot from being around you and all the panelists here today. But let's start there with you, Sarah, if you would. What is source and age verification? Just explain what that is all about.
Absolutely, Mark. When we look at verification, what we're actually talking about is documentation. That can be of marketing claims, production practices from the ranch all the way through to the packer. And when we talk about source verification specifically, we're talking about traceability back to the ranch of origin, knowing where that calf was born. And we're going to see that become increasingly important as we move forward. But right now, the big one and what's very important is age verification. And that's mostly because we live in a global market. And our export markets, specifically Japan, are requiring that if we want to export product to Japan, it has to be from cattle that are 20 months of age or younger at harvest. And in order for us to know their age at harvest, we obviously have to know what their birth date is.
Makes sense.
Absolutely, and that starts with the rancher on their operation, keeping a document of when their first calf was born, if not every calf born on their operation.
So that being said, let's talk a little bit about Angus Source that you deal with every day and Gateway. Maybe what makes those programs advantageous to producers watching our program here tonight?
Sure. Angus Source and Gateway are the two verification programs offered by the American Angus Association. They're two of the lowest cost age and source verification programs in the industry today. And Gateway is a standard program verifying source and age only. But Angus Source is our premier program for producers with Angus genetics. If they're using registered Angus bulls, they can take that verification to the next level and verify not only source and age, but those Angus genetics, because calves have to be sired by registered, properly transferred Angus bulls to go into Angus Source. And we know that Angus genetics are in demand throughout the industry, so if you're using registered Angus bulls on your operation, you want to get that full value out of your calves when you market, and a way to do that is through Angus Source. Actually, when we analyzed some of the video data from calves that sold last fall, we found that calves that were enrolled in a source and age verification program brought $1.57 a hundredweight more than non-verified calves. But if they were enrolled in Angus Source, we call that the Angus Advantage, it was an additional $1.08, which brought their total value to $2.65 a hundredweight.
Another $1.08 above that.
Another $1.08 above all other verification programs. Absolutely. So $2.65 a hundredweight was the additional value that they could capture when they marketed their calves.
Very good.